Katie. It is indeed. Maybe I'm the only one who hears that when it says recording in progress, but it says it very loudly in my headphones. Good evening, everybody, and welcome all. We'll just give it a couple more minutes before we get started here, as we still have some officers and board members trickling in. But I'd like to welcome everybody to tonight's annual meeting of the Two Lake Club Incorporated. It's a pleasure to see those who are able to make it. And it is an exciting year ahead of us. So I'm looking forward to hearing your thoughts and ideas as we make our way through the evening. Evening, Doug. How are we?
Hi, good, thanks.
Good to virtually see your name, at least. That's always nice.
Oh, you can't see my picture, huh?
It's fine.
Okay.
Oh, there we go.
Yeah.
All right.
Surprise.
Not a requirement, but it's always nice.
Center it over.
Okay. So as we're going, before we even get started, I just want to thank anyone and all who are in attendance tonight, and ask that for the public, if you do have questions throughout, you can either put them into the chat and they'll be addressed as we reach public comment sections, or if you prefer, you can just hold those if you want to just take a note. There will be opportunities for public comment, but especially in the early going, it is very procedural. So just fair warning, it is maybe not the most exciting right off the jump. But welcome all. This is, I've got our screen up there. Let me make sure I can see who's here. Doug, Martin, good. Beth. All right, I believe we are still officially waiting on a quorum right now. So I am just going to hold, but allow me to take another look at the roster here. Okay, so for this evening, to get us started, we officially do have enough members in the building of our board and our officers to officially begin. So without much further ado, I'd like to get things rolling, and if others join us as they can, we will fold them in. So just to review this evening before we even start, this is our agenda for the evening. We have 9 segments that we will be checking in on throughout the evening, beginning with verification of quorum and roll call of officers and directors, proof of notice, reading and approval of minutes from last year's meeting, the receiving of communications and public comment, election of officers and directors for new terms, the reports of officers, the reports of committees, and unfinished and new business prior to adjournment, finally, as our 9th topic. So hopefully that'll be a quick one. At this time, I would like to ask for a motion from one of our current directors to verify the quorum and roll call of officers and directors so we can officially begin the meeting. I note present, we have myself, the president, we have Sheila Tortorici, our vice president, we have Michael Rudy, our secretary, Larry Mango, our treasurer, Diane Shannon in attendance, a board of director. We have Douglas Emmerich on as a director, and we have Katie / I believe Martin Watkins on as a director as well. So a motion to recognize the attendance of the officers and board members to present a quorum of the board.
Make a motion.
Thank you, Martin. There he is. Hey, Marty.
I'll second that one.
All right, thank you. So we can verify that we do in fact have a quorum this evening of voting members, including the vice president and president, at which point now we can turn directly next to our proof of notice. The notice for this meeting was distributed via email on April 5th, with this notice on your left that was distributed to all residents in the community who have signed up for an email through the Two Lake Club and Two Lake Villages directory. In addition, physical copies were provided to households without a digital registration, such that all members of the neighborhood were notified with ample notice, that is more than 14 days notice prior to the meeting's occurrence. It included the agenda as well as the proposal of officers and directors for the coming year. On the right side, you will see the physical posting that went up on the notice board at the entryway to the community, as well, just for a little extra comfort and security and knowing that folks were aware. Beyond all of that, it was also posted on Facebook in the Two Lake Club Facebook group. At this time, I would like to make a brief, maybe cursory is a better word, reading and approval of the minutes from 2021, at which point I need to stop the sharing of my screen so that I can pull up a different screen. Mike, I did not erstwhile prepare you for this, so I'm prepared to go through it. Don't worry about it.
And just for everyone, I'm taking the minutes for tonight's meeting.
And thank you for that. The meeting of the Two Lakes Club was held via Zoom on April 29th, 2021. The following minutes were taken by Michael Rudy, called to order by outgoing President Larry Mango. We had a verification of quorum and roll call of officers and directors. Myself, Board Member Trevor McGinn, verified a majority of current officers and directors and were present and therefore quorum to proceed with the meeting. This remains true again for this year. Proof of notice was displayed, the reading of approvals. Reading of approval in minutes from last meeting, receiving of communications and public comment, the election of officers. You'll see the slate of officers and directors as proposed and duly elected. Reports of the officers were made, which was then carried out by Larry Mango, having been elected as the treasurer. Provided our annual budget report, a copy of which is attached to this document. The reports of the committees reported. Sheila reported expected work and repairs planned for the coming year, along with plan for a 2-day boat sale, which we'll come back to later. Trevor McGinn, again, myself, it's always weird reading my name, as the outgoing chair of the social committee. It turns out that didn't exactly happen. Reported that we weren't able to hold events in 2020, but that we were hoping to increase our community presence in the coming year. We did host a July 4th barbecue last year, but it was not the full event that we were accustomed to. We'll, again, return to that later. Unfinished and new business. The bulk of that conversation took the form of the creation of new committees, which included a 5-year plan committee, capital improvements committee, and safety and sustainability committee. Those, as of right now, are still in their fledgling form, and we will return to that later on this evening. Bulk pickup, a date was not set, as that has to be arranged directly with the carting company that we utilize, but it was agreed that we would circulate the date at time as it was finalized. And a motion was made by the treasurer to update the signatories at the bank where the Two Lakes Club checking and savings account were held, to include Larry Mango, the treasurer, Secretary Michael Rudy, as well as myself, the president. That was carried out shortly after. There being no further business, the meeting was adjourned at 8:40 p.m. We will aspire to such efficiency this evening. I pray. So that being said, with the reading of the minutes, we can resume our regularly scheduled entertainment.
I think we have to place a motion to accept those minutes, correct?
That is accurate. Thank you. Thank you, Sheila.
I place a motion to accept the 2021 minutes.
Second the motion.
Wonderful. Motion passes, and those are entered into the record. So at this time, we will move to the receiving of communications and public comment, at which point I would open the floor to any directors or officers who have as yet received communications from members of the community with issues that they wish to address, or anything that they wish to raise as a means of congratulations. I'll lead off the charge by recognizing the exemplary efforts of both Greg Nickel and Larry Mango in their work in our community in this past several weeks. The two of them have been doing yeoman's work in terms of revitalizing the entrance to our community, the notice board, the mulch area where our flowers, our little garden out there. It's been really lovely to see the two of them, frankly, quite a dynamic duo, along with some help from Alfredo Gonzalez's truck, which is important as well, because you need to have power to sand that post board. So it's been really great to see the work they have done together. And I also really want to highlight Mallory Wilmer, who will be joining us on the board hopefully this year, for hosting this year's egg hunt, which is the first that we have done, certainly in my time in the community. But it looked like an absolute blast. And I only hope that I'll be able to join it in the coming years. But it seemed like a smashing success, and we are indebted to her for spearheading that effort and giving the little ones of our community something to truly enjoy several weekends back. So I really want to point out the efforts there. And then specifically, again, I do want to highlight Larry, because he really stepped in a big way for me in the past year. My family, to those who know us, we have a very young child, and we have been very cloistered, I would say is the most nice way that I could describe how tightly knit our sort of lockdown has been. And Larry really stepped up and led for this community in the July 4th barbecue and anything that was sort of individual facing, in-person facing, in ways that my family was not comfortable with. And so I am indebted to him for that, and wanted to make sure that that went on the record here for the community to know not only what he's been doing for the community, as he always does, but specifically how great of an assistance and a help he has been to me. So with that said, that's my piece. I'll stop talking for a while. Do any of our other members or officers have anything that they need to report in terms of public communications?
I do not have any.
All right. Well, if I only hear no, that's usually a good thing. So at this time, I would also like to open this up to the public at large. So to our community members who have joined us this evening, this is our first opportunity at what Tantamount represents an open forum. If you have something that you would like to discuss directly with the board and the officers this evening, now would be a great time to put it on the table, at which point we can have that sort of on our docket for the evening after our election of the new officers, new board, such that it can be a topic of discussion as we move forward with our evening. Is there anything that any of our members of the community joining us online tonight would like to discuss?
Trevor, it's Greg. I saw that you had mentioned that they, in the minutes there, that you established these committees, right? For the social committee, sustainability, safety, etc. As part of the meeting today, we'll be discussing making sure that there's like someone leading those committees and what the tasks are. Because I think those are all great things. But then I noticed it's like no one doing anything.
Correct.
Right? So
Yeah.
no one leading it.
Yeah.
There's a lot of
and-
reasons why.
Sure. There's always reasons, but yes, Greg, that is part of our unfinished business in our later segment. Is I plan to circle back to those topics of those committees, their functions, their intended roles in our community, and then specifically how we can get those up and running in some sort of real way. So those will be topics for later on. So don't worry, that is definitely noted and on my docket. Do you have anything else that you want to make sure that we address as we go through?
Nope.
Okay.
Nope.
All right. Then at this time, we will move forward. I would like to make a motion to hold the election for new officers and a new board of directors. I will share my screen once more so everyone can see what we have going on. Or rather, I'd like to ask for a motion. I cannot formally create one.
I make a motion that we move on to the election of officers and directors.
I'll second that. Larry seconds that motion.
Thank you, Larry. Okay, so for our officers in the coming year, on the left side, you'll see 2021, that is the presidency, vice presidency, treasurer, and secretary. The same slate with one exception is proposed for the year 2022. For president, I will remain. For vice president, Sheila Tortorici will be stepping down and Douglas Emmerich will be stepping up. Larry will remain as treasurer and Mike will remain as secretary. I would like to move that we elect the full slate with the board's support.
Yes, I confirm that.
That sounded like Colleen. Is Colleen here?
Yes.
Oh, hey, Colleen. I didn't see you come in.
Yeah, just invisible. I don't know how to do this thing fully.
No, you nailed it. That was perfect. Okay, so seconded. So that passes and we will have just the one change with Sheila stepping down. I would also at this point like to acknowledge the work that Sheila has done and the help that she has been to me in my first year as the president in terms of helping me better understand the bylaws. It is always nice to have somebody with a firm understanding of those on your side. So I cannot thank her enough for her assistance in helping me find my sea legs, although I guess it's debatable whether or not they've been found moving forward. But at the same time, Sheila will not be going far because outgoing this year, we have Diane Shannon, Douglas Emmerich, as he will be stepping into the vice president's position, and Timothy Bearfield, who has stepped down from his position. Proposed for 2022 through 2025 are Mallory Womer, who joins us this evening, Amanda Serra, who is unfortunately unable to join us this evening, and Sheila Tortorici, who is resuming her role as a board member for us to help fill out the emptiness, or rather the vacancy created by Tim's absence. I would ask for a motion to approve the proposed candidates.
I second that.
I make the motion. That was a second. We'll take that.
Okay.
So wonderful. So at this time, I would like to formally welcome Mallory Womer as a board of director member to the Two Lake Club Incorporated. It is a thrill to have you, and we're excited to have you and Amanda as new members of our team. And at this time, I'd also like to thank Diane. Diane has been a member of this board since before I moved here. Not that I've been here for decades, but I've known no other way that this neighborhood has existed without her steady hand and her guidance. And she has been just such a warm and welcoming part of this community to, I know, myself and so many others. And it has been an honor to serve with you and to get to know you and your husband. And it is just, all I can do is express my greatest gratitude for everything you've done for this community, Diane. It truly has been just incredible to have you, and we free you now. We free you of your duty and of your obligation. Go run wild, be free, and enjoy your time with your husband. Okay, that cheesily said, we will move forward on to the reports of the officers, beginning with myself. So I've already sort of gotten into some of the events of the past year. Again, the egg hunt just a couple weeks ago was a great way to kick off our spring and summer season. I'm excited for this year. I think there's really a lot of opportunity for this community. And as we are changing, our dynamics are changing every day. We just had a new family move in on 3 North Lake Circle. So we're seeing, so the demographics change in ways that, at our pre-work meeting, Greg Nickel really highlighted, I think, an astute observation, which is just that we are starting to find ourselves at the ends of both poles with very young families, as well as a community that has been in this neighborhood for a very long time. And there's that middle group is starting to wax and wane, if you will. And so one of the things I really want to work towards considering in this coming year is how we can best serve both sides of that community, how we can make sure that everyone feels they are being served by this board, by their officers, and by the Two Lake Club at large. So I at this time, I really just want to invite any and all to reach out to myself, reach out to Doug, reach out to any of the directors, or you can reach out directly to the Two Lake Club via our Gmail account. That will be up on the screen later, but it can also be found at the website. And let us know what would help you better enjoy your community, what would help you feel more involved in the community. because we can brainstorm, we can do all we like, but at the end of the day, hearing your feedback is the best way for us to make this a better community for everyone. So that's where I'll leave my report for now. I have more coming with, community events, et cetera. But that, as the president, is really all I have to say. Sheila, do you have anything that you would like to report at this time?
Be better if I unmuted first. No, no unique report for the vice president at this time. Thank you.
Okay. Larry, I'm going to skip you briefly. And Mike, do you have anything that you would like to comment on? Mike, can you hear me?
I'm sorry. Can
Oh,
you hear me?
no
Oh.
worries. Yeah. Do you have
No.
anything that you would like to report on at this time?
No,
No.
not at this time. Sorry about that.
Okay. Larry, anything specific before we turn things over to you full-fledged?
Nothing specific. I was prepared to go over the income and expenses from last year and our draft budget for 2022. I did want to ask, I want to say that we did have, as a board, we had a work session about a month ago. I just want to make sure that Trevor is sharing a PDF that I had sent around earlier today. Because we did have a work session earlier this month as a board where we went over the expenses and the budget, and there were some communications in between now and then where I made some minor adjustments. And this looks like this is the up-to-date version. Okay. So hopefully everybody could see this on the screen, but I'm going to talk you through it. What we're looking at on the left-hand side of the screen is the income and expense statement from 2021. So we have two columns there side by side. The budget is right about in the middle of the screen, and the actual is just to the right of that. And then there's a third column that shows the variance between what was budgeted and the actual revenues and expenses that came in. And as you can see, we're very close, the budget to the actual when we're looking at the revenues. The budgeted amount was $16,050, which is $150 in dues per resident. And we have 102 homes, I believe, or 102 lots that get dues assessed. Plus, every year we normally ask for contributions, and we normally get some. So we budgeted some last year. We got a lot more that actually came in. We're in a very generous community. And we also had some minimal collection income from past years where there were dues outstanding, where people paid late with late fees. So we had $16,050 in revenue budgeted, $15,845 came in. So we were about $205 behind on our revenues. And I did just get another check-in. So we're about even year over year on the budget for 2021 versus the actual. And then in the column that's shaded gray, that is the budget that we came up with for this coming year. We do have a number of new members that we know about, and new members are assessed $150 as an initiation fee. So this year we do know there are new members, so we did include initiation fees in the budget for this year. We assumed that we would collect about the same percentage as we did last year. We assumed that that there would be some collection income from past dues from 2021 and earlier years, where there is outstanding dues that are left unpaid. And we also assume that there would be some other income in the form of contributions. Now, I do want to note that you'll see in the actual column for other income and contributions, it's a pretty big number, $2,120, which is more than we would have typically received. And that is in large part because we did, after many years, hold an auction and a sale for abandoned boats. And I know Colleen Harris, who's on the meeting with us, and she spent a lot of time on that. But really, Sheila Tortorici had really pulled it together with her now husband Bart, and they put a lot of time and effort into coordinating that sale. So I want to thank them both, as well as Colleen and others who over the years have really pushed to try to do a sale of the abandoned boats. And there were probably a dozen boats that were abandoned, and most of them got resold to other members of the community, and some of them have been rehabbed. So that was I think that was a great result. As far as the expenses go, we have very minimal administrative expenses, pretty much limited to hosting the website, which is paid every 2 years. We have a fee that's due. And then we have some postage and other expenses related to mailings. Those mailings and the printing expenses are really sending out the annual dues, because most of the other communications we try to do by email and by putting up neighborhood postings. So you can see those expenses for the past year are fairly minimal. We had $512 in administrative expenses. And for the year coming up, we budgeted the same as last year, $552. The next section is mainly has to do with taking care of our community property, which is the beach club area, the beach, the parking area, and the boat launch. And we also have some money that's in there for seasonal plantings, both down at the lake and also at the flower beds and the urns at the intersection of Oskaleta Road and Twin Lakes Road. But as you can see, most of the expenses were really for landscaping and lawn service. We do have swim area maintenance, which mainly consists of removing weeds by hand in the swim area. And we have boat launch area maintenance, which mainly consists of putting down a benthic barrier, which is really like a heavy cloth-like material that goes down in the boat launch area so the weeds can't grow up where people are launching their boats. So those barriers get put down in the spring, and then they're taken out in the fall, and they're stored over the winter. So you can see those expenses last year for the boat launch area maintenance, $1,075. And then we have a seasonal porta-san or a porta-john that we usually have down at the lakefront, at the beachfront, from Memorial Day until Labor Day. And that's billed on a monthly basis. And the fees on that did go up last year. So we were a little bit over what we had budgeted for the seasonal porta-san. But those repairs and maintenance items totaled $7,695 for the year. As you could see in the variance column, we were about $1,300 over what we had budgeted. And you could see where those differences came in. We probably had like one extra harvesting of the weeds in the swim area this year compared to previous years. And we also spent some money on sand, the cleaning of the sand and removing of weeds in the beach area. So we had some tractor runtime expenses there, which we didn't budget for. But all in all, if we run down a little bit further to the bottom line for our income and expenses for the year in 2021, and if we look at the budget going forward, we are very close to where we were budgeted. The other expenses that I didn't cover yet, insurance remains more or less consistent from year to year. We did get the bill, it went up $9 for 2022 compared to 2021. Real estate taxes have been fairly consistent year to year. We're assessed as an unimproved lot by the town, so the taxes are very, very low. And then our program costs, they do change from year to year. We did budget about $2,000 for annual bulk trash pickup, and we were only billed $542. Trevor and I believe that there was some sort of mistake there, but the carting company seems unwilling to bill us more, so I guess we'll leave that as it is. There were some improvements to the beach club, improvements to boat racks and the boat launch, and then picnic and association events are all, as you can see, fairly minimal. from last year. And going forward, which I'll talk about in a minute, we are going to pull those items out of our operating budget, and we do have a capital reserve. So going forward, we're going to try to track those items in a capital budget from year to year. And a number of years ago, probably a decade or more ago, a decision was made by the board that we should hold at least a year's worth of expenses, if not a year and a half's worth of expenses in reserve. And we have been trying to do that. Right now, we have a little over a year's worth of expenses currently in a specific cash reserve account. So you can see at the balance sheet at the top of the screen, we have a savings account and a checking account, both at Chase and Cross River. The total amount there, if you add those two together, is what is that, $22,300. So we're well over a year's worth of expenses. We aren't charged any fees on the bank accounts. We have like a legacy account. Now they would be charging us fees, but because we have had the account for decades at the same branch, they're not charging us any annual fees. The little X's next to those just mean that I've double checked them all. So excuse me for that. I did want to note we have some accounts receivable. Every year we probably have between 8 and 10 residents that don't pay on time. In most cases, residents end up getting caught up in the in the next year. There are a few residents that have outstanding dues that are more than a couple of years old. And the numbers that you see on the screen include late fees, which do add up. So the late fees are $15 if they aren't paid, I believe within 30 days or so, or within a certain period after they get the notice. And then when a second notice goes out, there's another $15 assessed. So there's a $30 late fee annually, and that adds up. So if somebody is 3 years in arrears for dues that are 3 years old, they'll be assessed $150 plus $30 per year. So $90 in late fees for dues that have not been paid in 3 years. So 6 North Lake Circle, I believe that represents the largest unpaid account, and I think that's 6 years in arrears. But again, most of the accounts end up getting paid. Sometimes there's things going on with residents where for one reason or another there's some sort of misunderstanding, or they just haven't paid their dues. In some cases, there's confusion between the Three Lakes Council and the Waterworks and the Two Lakes Club. So there are reasons why they sometimes don't get paid, but this is a deeded association, and every time a house gets sold, either Trevor or I will typically get a call from the attorney representing the buyer, and they want to know if the account is up to date. And if it's not, it gets made part of the closing statement. So we will end up getting collections on most of these accounts unless somebody's selling their house without any financing, which does happen from time to time. But in any case, let's see, I also just show on the balance sheet, we do have a couple of accounts payable. The real estate taxes actually were paid, and the State Farm insurance is due next month. That'll be paid in time. And if you add up all that together with the accounts receivable, our balance sheet would show about $25,000, $24,924. So that's what I have for the 2021 budget. I'm sorry, the 2021 financials, the 2022 budget, and the balance sheet. I think if you look at the budget, the bottom line budget number, we have our income and expenses more or less equal. We have a little bit of extra money based on the budget, $41 extra, which would at the end of the year, technically it would be transferred to our savings account if that were the case where we had extra, and that would go to fund our capital reserve. So I want to just pause here and just see if anybody has any questions. I dumped a lot on the residents and my neighbors, so I apologize, but there's really not all that much there. There was a total of 35 invoices that we paid last year, so it
So-
wasn't like all that much. as
So
far as
Larry,
administrative.
on the, sorry, Trevor, can you bring the screen in a little bit again? It's on the dues. So that 13.5 that we collected last year and the 13.5 we're projecting for 2022. How many households did not pay last year? What does it represent? Do you know? Sorry about.
That would represent 10 out of 102 assessed residents who did not make payment. I believe one of them was recently paid and was unrecorded, so it really should be probably 9 where we have outstanding dues.
Yeah, I'm gonna assume 3 of them are habitually not intending to pay, based on the accounts receivable on the right. I guess I'm wondering, do we feel like we're comfortable projecting, and I know I looked at this and I apologize because I didn't look that closely. Should we project for the budget less than 100%?
For the budget, I actually did project less than 100% collected.
No, actually, that's what the question, should we be doing that? I'm wondering if that's right, or should we project 100% coming in?
I agree with Larry. I think that there should be an allowance for doubtful accounts, which is what he's done in essence. So if it's highlighted as, doubtful, or he just has adjusted the total revenue anticipated, I think that it's important that you do that.
So we have three that I would say are doubtful, right? The 3 that are historically doubtful.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, I guess to offset it.
And I guess I'm wondering why project so.
For conservative budgeting principles, I think
rather-
it's always better to budget, to account for them being doubtful. And if we get it, it's just upside, but it won't result in a budgeted shortfall in essence. So I think I agree with the principle of how it was laid out.
I agree. I agree also.
Sorry to interrupt, Colleen. Just to offset that though, please note the next line in the budget, right under that, there's $1,500 of collection income for past due accounts. So in effect, we're anticipating we're gonna get it one way or another, whether it's in current year or past due. Eventually it's going to be collected.
Okay, I think I didn't know that before. Thanks, Larry.
Well, and that 1,500 though is still not a full accounting of what we're owed. So it's really only recouping some of that cost, So I agree with the principle here. It's always better to be pleasantly surprised and have that reflected at the end of the year. Because in total, just with those 3 addresses that are the most in arrears, that's almost $2,500 between the 3 of them. That's not including the folks that are just a year behind, who will probably come back around in the coming year. So I think that'll balance.
And Sheila and the rest of the board and my other neighbors that are in the meeting with us, I don't know how long I've been on the board in one way or another, in one position or another, but I think it's probably over 12 years now. And I don't think in those 12 years we've ever not collected more than like a year's in dues if somebody has moved away from the community with outstanding dues. And I think that happened before the homeowners association documents were recorded. About 10 years ago, one of the residents in the community who was an attorney made sure that they were deeded and recorded with the county clerk's office, so that they will come up on title when a home is sold. And I think that really protects us.
Yeah, it was definitely problematic before that, because I would say, so I've been on the board actually since I moved here. So for 14 years. And we definitely had much more significant problems. She basically had no recourse, or nothing that you could really track against, so.
Now, that doesn't mean that we won't make efforts to collect the past due accounts. So there are definitely some calls and letters that will go out. Certainly with the next round of invoices for 2022. So what's not shown on here, but I think it's at the very bottom of the sheet that Trevor has, is the dues rate of $150 has been the same for about as long as I could remember. I think it went up by maybe $15 or $20 about a dozen years ago.
Yep.
But
25, I think, because it was 125 when I moved in.
125.
I
But
think
it's
it was
been
25. Long time.
we've been able to keep it consistent for all that time and build our capital reserve up to a level that is probably a reasonable level right now for a small homeowners association like ours. Although I kind of would like to hear, I know Martin Watkins is in the business and he manages associations, I believe. So we didn't get a chance to talk about this beforehand, Martin, but do you have anything to say or suggest about our reserves?
Sure. So I think the general principle of maintaining roughly a year's worth of expense in reserves, which we've achieved, is good. But I think that we need to be cognizant of the fact that consumer price index was roughly 8%. And it's really at the end of this past fiscal. And, I don't anticipate it being that high again this year, but I think that we're foolish if we don't start accounting for, reasonable, palatable increases of, 5% of $150 is not a tremendous ask from our members. And I think that, if we at least can justify it by saying, hey, we're just following the national or our regional rather CPI. This is what we're going up this year. It's 8% this year. Next year, hopefully it's 2%. I know historically, I think over the past 10 years, we've averaged between 1.5% and 2% consumer price index. This year was just a bit different, but I think that we need to implement those increases, especially knowing we have delinquent accounts and aged receivables that are probably not likely going to be collected until there's a transaction on one of these properties where we do have a lien in place. And one of the things that I don't know if it was mentioned, but as far as the few habitual arrears that we have, there has been some board discussion and I believe some forward progress on if you're in arrears more than a certain duration of time or more than a certain amount, I think we will become a bit more stern. And we will look to file a lien because unless you're on record as a lien holder, the property will transact without issue and we will be left holding the bag. So I think the board's making great steps as far as in the past 30 days, really getting on top of some of the people that just turn their nose at the dues and they don't even consider paying them. And that's not fair because the rest of the members here, call it the other 95 to 100 members we're picking up the shortfall, and that's money that can really go towards community events, lake maintenance, or just offsetting the next year's increase. And we don't have to do an increase or less of an increase because we're collecting 100% of what we should be collecting from a revenue perspective. So for me, I like the way the board is handling the receivables now. But as far as the $150 dues rate, I think it's time probably to increase it and we base it based on CPI, my opinion.
I have to disagree with that.
Yeah, well, Marty, it's great
yeah.
too. I mean, I disagree with that too, and I'll get deferred to you in a second. I mean, I agree the operating expenses are going to go up, but I think we need to have a capital plan to understand what we're going to spend from a capital perspective. Because if our capital expenditures are going to be going down 10% over the next 5 years, and then the operating expenses are going up, then we net out to be zero or less. So, I mean, I absolutely agree with your concept that operating expenses are going up, but until we have a capital plan that lays out how much of the annual dues are going to the capital plan, I don't think we can make a statement that we need to increase the dues.
Well,
More than likely, we will have to. I'm not
I
disagreeing with that.
I understand your point, and I do agree. But the only thing I'll say contrary to that is that the CPI or the dues increase that I'm talking about would not be to fund capital reserve projects or long-term projects. It would be purely to cover the operating. I do believe
Okay.
operating expenses will increase by that 5 or 8% that it was this past year. So I'm not commingling the two as far as reserve versus operating. So I think we're in agreement. You know, I don't
Right.
want to overfund the operating and then use that to slush fund the reserve. I'm just saying, I
Right.
think whatever the operating expenses go up, I just want to match whatever the CPI is, or roughly that, whatever we know our internal cost base
Right.
going up for our operating expenses. I just don't want there to be a shortfall. So I think we're in
No,
agreement.
I agree, and I think, you know, that one of the things that Trevor mentioned before, I mean, there was supposed to be a capital committee and a capital plan, and we should look at the 150 has a component that's operating, and a part of the 150 is capital. So we
An
should figure out,
allocation for the reserve.
right, we should find right allocation, but yeah.
Okay,
bottom line-
Sheila's got her hand up, so I'd like to go to her, but briefly, I do want to highlight, just to Martin's point, that just in the past year, we can see in the boat launch, or not the boat launch, but the seasonal portisan, that increase was $300. That's something that they just increased the rates because that porta potties were in high demand last year. Similarly, our landscaping went up by $525. There's no reason for that other than the cost of gas and labor. So, you know, that's, I think, to Martin's point, what he's highlighting is that there will be continued regular operating expenses that have nothing to do with the capital side that need to be accounted for. So Sheila, I'll hand it to you now.
Yeah, so the only comment I have to make on that is we had a much more significant savings account built up, which we saved in order to spend for the playset, which thankfully, I guess,
Right.
it brought all these new families and members into the community with small children. So I think it was an excellent idea. But I guess I'm of the belief that if, you know, and don't like the idea of taking on expenses for people who refuse to pay, because then I'll just join the people who refuse to pay. Like what's the incentive there? So I think there's a couple of things that we haven't done. One, we don't remove privileges, although we just started to recently by not having trash pickup if you're not current with your dues. But these people can still use the beachfront. You know, they still get the other advantages of the community. I'm just hesitant because, you know, one, we did have a work meeting and we did not discuss raising dues, which I think is what Marty's implying we should do. It's been so expensive for regular people to get by these past couple of years. I'm not sure we want to tax
Agree.
any further right now. I think we should take it
Right.
into account for next year and maybe look at it and consider it ahead of this actual session. But I'm very hesitant to add additional expense to a community that's, you know, I can tell you my food budget, and Bart eats a lot, but not that much more than he did last year. But just everything in my income has not gone up. So everything is more expensive, no increase on the income side. And I'm sure I'm not the only one in the community that's got that going on.
Yeah, I agree.
I think it's an interesting point, but we've saved before, we've gotten ahead before at the 150 rate. I think we should play this year out because this year is going to be very funky for all of us. And I do expect that we know the price of fuel has gone up, right? So we know lawn and maintenance is probably going to go up. I'm not ready to consider taxing the community to cover that after the past 2 years we've had.
I
But that's
agree.
just my thought.
Colleen, do you
I
have anything
agree.
more
I
you want
think
to
we
say?
can, I think we can just assess it each year. Yeah. Because things could come down in 2 years from now too. You know, can't stay up forever. hopefully. So.
Yeah,
then-
fingers crossed.
And just,
Fingers
Yeah.
just,
crossed.
just to
And
note.
I was just gonna comment on one thing else in here that others may not be aware of. In the past, so Larry did make a new itemized list for the tree service because we've had to, especially with the ash trees. So I think last year's was still why you see it at zero for the most part is because it actually came out of another budget somewhere, maybe in the program costs it came out of, I'm not sure. And that was probably about $2,400 to take that ash tree was a safety hazard hanging over there by the play set with the limbs and that. And so we had them cut it down, like, and not necessarily bring everything down to its root, but to a safety level. And there are several other ash trees down there that will eventually need tending to. So that we did put in this new list, but just so you know, it was reflected in other parts that came out of other costs in past years. And yeah, so.
Thank you, Colleen, for highlighting that.
Yeah.
We have had expenses for tree service most years, so we did think that that wasn't really like a program cost, but really just an annual maintenance cost. And going forward, we think it should be part of our regular repair and maintenance budget that we include dollars for tree service.
Yeah, just can I say make one more point on. I agree with Colleen regarding the trees. I guess that's the point I was making is that the operating expenses. I mean, if you look down at I'm not an arborist, but I do work with a lot of trees and production, and I know other people do here too, or have spouses that do. You don't have to look far to find things that are going to need repair in the immediate future. I mean, we had the one-time capital expenditures or once in our lifetime capital expenditures of the playground, which is an obvious one. But tree maintenance is one area alone. One tree could be $4 or $5 grand, depending on the location. You need a climber. And what I'm just saying is I'm not pro raising dues. I didn't want my comments to come across like that. I'm 100% for controlling costs. I'm just saying, if you look around, even as a layperson, you can find things, specifically trees, that will need to come down. And those are large dollar items. I just didn't want to see the reserve fund either fund the operating budget, and then now we have an operating shortfall, or we just totally miss the fact and we're oblivious to that we are going to have some significant operating expenses, and the type of things we're talking about, they're not trivial. It's not more sand, it's not more mulch, it's probably going to be in the line of tree work, and that's going to be thousands. So I just didn't want what I said to be taken as I want to raise the dues indiscriminately. I'm just reading the tea leaves, and I think that we're probably going to, as Colleen pointed out, we went over budget on those items, and we really didn't go crazy as far as what we took down. That we're going to have more of that. So,
Mhm.
Okay, we need,
No,
You need-
that's heard. Mallory does have her hand up, Larry. I'd like
Hi,
to give her an
Yep.
opportunity.
So are we allowed to fundraise as an organization?
I don't see why not.
But yeah,
Okay, so I mean, like an immediate thing that pops to mind just because I walk/run through the neighborhood all the time and I see so many people running, like, could we have a 5K? Could we set a 5K course through the neighborhood and ask people $20? You first X number of people get a t-shirt, and then use that money to offset the cost.
I would say that's a good idea, like going forward, something to keep in mind.
So that's a really good point, and Mallory brought up, and actually my wife and I have a lot of experience for 5K races in the town of Lewisboro, specifically South Salem. We organized the South Salem Presbyterian Church 5K race along with Robin Musicant for many years, for three 2 to 3 years until COVID hit and we had to stop it. So that's the biggest fundraiser that the church has all year. And I will tell you that even with the hundreds of people involved, donor-wise for racers as well as vendors that were brought in, I think the net proceeds were in the, call it $4,000 range every year. And that was for a huge event that had massive coordination and a lot of planning. So I think it's a good idea, but I don't think the proceeds that will generate from that will fund, would really fund enough to make a big dent in it. I think it's a good idea. I'd be a part of it and our family would too. So I'm supportive of what Mallory's saying. I'm just saying we need to do a lot of those
ways for the
cover where I think we need
our
to.
community to make a few bucks for things.
I saw, sorry,
Similarly-
I saw Robin Arita popped up a message on the chat saying about, which I like this idea very much, of doing a community tag sale before the bulk pickup. And that could be a fundraiser.
Yeah, so I think that's a great idea
Yeah.
from Robin that could really be a wonderful opportunity too to gather people together. If we ask folks that if they have materials that are in good condition, that they are just going to be, typically those things are left out, and that's sort of the swap meet vibe that we sort of find in the neighborhood in the days leading up to bulk pickup. Is everyone kind of runs around and gets their chance to cherry pick everything that folks have left out, which is a nice way for sort of a community revitalization of used and loved goods. It could also very easily be placed as a donation to the Two Lake Club, and we could administer a tag sale. So that's definitely something that we could advertise in advance of the bulk pickup as a way to generate some extra income as well. I think that's a great idea.
So
Yeah,
Trevor,
Trevor, I think that's great, because that could maybe, people could just donate all this stuff. We just put the money into the community, and what's happened, because it always used to be that there was the tag sale, and then people put up for free, and then like the next day there was the bulk pickup. And what's happened over time is people start putting their crap out a week to 10 days in advance, and we got everybody driving through the neighborhood, which I'm not overly comfortable with.
But it also
Stuff
gets
out in
rained
all the
on.
yards, right, et cetera. But before it was, people had a tag sale, the money came to them. But the idea of having a community one and the money going to the community is even better. And then the leftovers can be free for people. And then we just coordinate right after that, the bulk pickup. So we do it in 3 or 4 days. It'll generate some money for the community. People can donate whatever they want. People can pick up free the balance of it. And then we just have the bulk pickup the next day. I think that would be kind of a win-win for everybody.
Great. Sheila, you have your hand up?
I do. So I think both are great ideas, both the run, the tag sale. And what I don't recall, and I apologize because I probably should know this, I don't think we actually have a fundraising committee. And I'm wondering, Trevor, if that's not something we should establish so that there's someone responsible for sort of collecting these ideas and helping to at least assign someone to organize different events. Because as Marty referenced, there's a lot of work to set up a 5K. I think a community tag sale is a little bit easier. A very successful 5K is a tremendous amount of work. So I'm wondering if we should establish a fundraising committee. I know obviously people can volunteer to give extra money when they pay their dues, but I think only the president can establish committees. And I'm wondering if it's worth doing.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. I think especially where we're looking right now to avoid having to raise dues, that I think it's certainly worthwhile in terms of creating some revenue to help sort of buffer against the inflation that we're seeing in certain areas. I would be thrilled to form such a committee. The first order of business when doing so, though, is typically to find someone who would be willing to take the reins as the chair. So before officially forming it, because this is part of a conversation we'll return to later in terms of committees. Is there anyone present on this call this evening? It does not have to be a director. It does not have to be an officer, but anyone from the community who would be interested in taking that charge and leading such a committee that would be our central location, our hub for all fundraising endeavors, whether it be coordinating the tag sale, planning for a 5K, and then similarly envisioning whatever might come to mind for you and running it through the board for approval. And it's would be a very straightforward process of ideation, approval, and let's get it going. We try and cut out as much red tape as possible. Is there anyone here who would be interested in leading that charge?
Or if someone wants to do the tag sale fundraiser this year and see how it goes, that would be wonderful.
So I would definitely help someone who wants to lead. This is Sheila. Sorry, I don't think I have the experience to lead something called fundraising. But I consider the boat sale from last year, that was a bit of a fundraiser, right? And
Yeah.
someone formal one, and I sat down at the lake in the rain, and Colleen inventoried boats for, I don't know, days and possibly over multiple years. So I would definitely support anyone who could do it, but I don't have the knowledge or the experience to lead that type of a committee. But if anyone does, I would absolutely help.
Well, that's why I was thinking maybe just randomly on certain things like the boats came up, or then maybe with the bulk pickup, and then from there, maybe we can look into formalizing a little bit more, but let's see how it goes again, if anyone wants to step up for, with the tag sale.
If you lead a committee, do you have like other committee meetings?
You can.
You certainly are allowed to, but it is not required.
Okay. I mean, since I mentioned it, I will willingly take the inaugural reins of it. Though that said, I have never planned a 5K. I just like popped that out of my mind. So I'm totally down with the tag sale first. I think that's a nice, easy entrance into this.
Yeah.
And I think that's fine. Like if we, I would definitely help you get the tag sale stuff. I think what I don't want to do with the tag sale is collect everything in one spot, because then we're having to deal with everything about it. I'd rather see if we can lay out tables at community by house. But we can talk about that. I would definitely help you, Mallory, without a doubt. You'd have to have a meeting though. Sorry, at least we'd have to have one, or a phone call or something.
Right.
Oh yeah, no,
Right.
I agree with that. My only concern with doing it at multiple houses would be the collection of money.
Yep, that's
All right. Well,
Or you could do a 50%, whatever, to 50
So-
zone or 50 community or whatever, I don't know.
so Trevor, you're,
I am officially, Larry, you're trying, go for it.
I just want to make sure we have enough time to take care of business. And I know that there's time in the schedule for like unfinished business and more open discussion. So I just wanted to come back to the budget. And we were talking about the cash reserves. The cash reserves are not just for capital type items like investments in like furniture at the lake or fencing or whatever. It's also there for unanticipated things that might come up. And like a good example of that could be like, God forbid, like the Two Lakes Club is sued, for instance, and we needed to engage an attorney and there was a $10,000 retainer. Like we need to be prepared to have some funds for things that we just can't account for and we can't anticipate. There is Greg Nickel did put some time in, and I don't want to make sure we just cover it quickly at least. He did put together like a draft 5-year capital plan. And I think these numbers, Greg put this together, but I did adjust the numbers a little bit just based on my experience on the board and the expenses that we've kind of seen in the past. But you can see see on this page, we're trying to put like different lines for the different types of expenses that we could incur down at the beach. The place that there is zero, because I don't anticipate that we'll incur any expenses there in the next 5 years, but it was a good $15,000 to replace the play set. So, and we're working right now. I know Sheila and Bart are leading this effort to rebuild one of the docks that we tried to save but was not able to be saved, and that's going to be several $1,000s. And it's something that, you know, we can't necessarily anticipate it, but just fencing needs to be replaced every few years. FF&E, furniture, fixtures, and equipment, that could be barbecues, it could be picnic tables, things over time they wear out and they may need to be replaced. And these are just the typical types of costs that we might see. This was just put together kind of as an exercise, so this isn't meant to be official. But I was trying to be cognizant of the things that we would expect to spend money on this year in 2022. So that's in that that first column there, where I'm anticipating that we'll spend another $1,750 on rebuilding that finger dock, and that was in consultation with Sheila on that. We probably will spend some money stabilizing the drive down to the beach. That whole area is built kind of on like landfill and muck that was taken out of the channel. So over time it does subside, and we do need to put down additional gravel there to keep that stable on the roadway at the very least. And we'll probably spend some money on repairing picnic tables or replacing them. So those are just the types of items that we could spend money on. And it changes from year to year, and we can't really anticipate it. And a lot of times we budget for things and we just don't get to them because we're all volunteers and we don't have enough time necessarily. But you could see over time, if we keep contributing to this, this reserve I would expect that it'll keep growing unless things that are unanticipated come up. So that's it. If nobody has any questions on the capital plan, I think we're gonna probably have a capital committee, hopefully, that will revisit this. But I would like to go back to the budget, and I think we do need to adopt the budget as an official order of business.
Correct.
So I have presented it, and if somebody would like to make a motion, or if there's any further discussion, I think we should have it now.
I motion to prove it.
Okay, Colleen has motioned to approve the budget
Can we
as
hear a
presented.
second?
I second the motion.
All right, thank you, Sheila. All right, so our 2022 budget has been passed and approved. Thank you, Larry, and thank you, Greg, for your work. We will certainly be returning to our 5-year capital plan page in just a moment. At this
Larry,
time,
Larry, before we move off to the finances, on the accounts receivable, people that haven't paid, what actions have we taken, and what have been the responses back from the top 3 people as to why they have not paid?
Yeah, when was the last time of communication about it?
so I can take that question. So the last communications with them were after the, bulk pickup and then beach season of last summer. The lien letter has been prepared based off the conversation tonight. It seems that we are going to be moving forward with formally notifying these houses that they have a set limit of time to make good on their overdue balances for those 3 addresses. That had not formally been discussed, but as of tonight, given everyone's discussion and the impression I'm receiving from the board members, that seems to be a go. So those homes will be notified of impending legal action against their addresses. That letter is set and ready to be sent tomorrow, but they have not responded in any fashion to any of our attempts to recoup the monies that they owe to the community at large.
So we've made multiple attempts to contact them in person, on phone, things, and like over 6 years, for some people, they've been non-communicative.
Correct.
I find that unusual, since I was on the board, and I still am on the board of the the waterworks. And, you know, we've had problems just like you had every single year. There was 8, 9 people who didn't pay. But, you know, we never had anybody who didn't pay for 5, 6 years. So
Well,
it just
we have
seems strange to
found
me.
that to be the case, and we have attempted to recoup
Okay.
those costs. So at this point with those homes, it will be moving forward with a more legal process at this point, simply because there doesn't seem to be much other recourse.
Greg, I'm the collector for the past due amounts, and there's a invoice that goes out after the meeting. Then a few months later, there's a second invoice that goes out, and then I make a few phone calls, and then there's only so much time and energy that I personally have to invest in it.
Yeah, no,
And-
I understand it. I just think that we're going to generate ill will in the community, right? By threatening to sue our neighbors.
So-
If they said that they refused to pay for a specific reason, but non-response, I mean, we know who these people are. We see them. Has anybody on the board face-to-face say, you haven't paid your dues over 6 years? Why haven't you paid them? Do you have financial problems? Or do you have no intention to pay them? If they say I have no intention to pay them, then put the lien on. But I mean, I'm just uncomfortable filing legal action against our neighbors. That's my position personally.
Yeah, I
The
had.
board and the officers can decide what they want to do.
I agree. Like I had thought that, especially since our last meeting, I didn't know, I had assumed that phone calls had been made. So I would, at least with 1 or 2 of them down the road for me, I'm not sure that they're that, or she's that aware of things. I don't know what conversations have been. I don't think there's been any outright denial to do it. So I would rather a conversation. If you want, I can address that with that person. But I thought, I didn't know, I mean, you guys let me know if that's something you want me to bring up to the nearest neighbor.
I'm happy to have conversations with folks. I think to Larry's point is that within the past year, these addresses have received upwards of a half a dozen notifications of their overdue status. If at any point,
Trevor, as a neighbor, okay, there's one of the people on there that owes the most money, and you and I see one of them, the husband or the wife, okay, people who live in that house, at least 3-4 times a week walking the dog. Okay, so has anybody said anything to the people at 6 North Lake Circle?
Greg,
It's not like they're
frankly, my
invisible.
life experience is not that. I do not see these folks every day. I do not see them 3-4 times a week. As you know, I have a young daughter. I walk past that house maybe once a week.
All right, but Trevor, the rest of us who live in this community, okay, we see Sabrina walking the dogs, and we see Jeff walking the dogs, and he had 2 German Shepherds and the cats. They're not hiding and whatever. So I mean, between the directors and the board, there's probably half a dozen to 10 people. I find it hard to believe over the last 6-7 years, no one has ever said anything to the people, and now you want to start a lawsuit. It just doesn't seem right to me. And
It's
believe
not a
me,
lawsuit, it's a
It's
lien.
not- it's
and
not a
we
lawsuit, it
have-
is-
And we have communicated with them, and I've talked to them year after year. I've left messages on their phone. I've talked to them in person. I have sent emails. They get the notices by mail. So it's like, what else do I do? Like,
Okay,
I'm not gonna, every time I see them walking their dog, I'm not gonna confront them. I just don't want to be confrontational, and I don't want to live in a community where I have to think I have to confront somebody every time I go out my front door.
Larry, I agree with you 100%. This is the first time I've heard anybody on this call that said they've had a conversation with the people and then they said they wouldn't want to pay. So if you've had a conversation with them in person, they don't want to pay, proceed. I have no problem with that at all. All I'm just saying, if we did not have a conversation with them.
The notices are gonna go out again within the next few weeks, and they're gonna
Right.
get a
Again.
phone call in the next few weeks, and then we'll make a decision on what to do after
Right.
that.
And this
Right.
is merely a notice of potential impending action. This is
Yep.
we've tried this for years. This is an attempt to finally get them to say, fine, we will come and do
Right.
the thing that everyone else in the community has done over these several years. and restore their good standing with the community. I don't think that is too big of an ask.
Correct me if I'm wrong. If we don't put a lien on them, they can move and not pay us the money. If it's a cash sale,
the new owner, if it were a cash deal, they could conceivably sell, be gone, and we would have no way of recouping that cost. Correct.
Right.
And that at the end of the day, that is what it is. We've tried this for years. There have been phone calls, there have been conversations, there have been notices. You can only ask so many ways with someone either telling you no or giving you no response before it's clear what their intention is. So last year was the first year that we publicized the addresses in question. And to the credit of this board, that did result in the payment of one of our largest overdue accounts, which was multiple addresses were paid off as a result of just that small amount of public pressure. So now this is our next step, is a notice of potential action, not a guarantee, that is up to the homeowners to make themselves good with the community.
So a few years ago, we did a late charge forgiveness for our past due residents. Are we willing to consider, and I realize I think we're trying to pass the budget, Larry, so I apologize. Maybe we should pass the budget and then talk about this. But are we willing to do a past due forgiveness, a custom notice to all, however many houses it is, so it's not just the 3, there's the people from last year as well, indicating that, this is and we did not formally, that I recall, send a specific notice that said, we are asking, we're giving forgiveness. We're asking you to make an attempt to pay this past due bill. So are we up to doing a forgiveness for past due late charges? And I think that's just kind of a yes or no from the community. Probably, again, we should probably pass the budget before we get into this discussion. But is that something we should consider, where we would write 10 or however many unique letters have to happen to those offending houses? So it's last year's houses plus the 3, and say, we're doing a one-time forgiveness. If you pay your invoice by June 30th, 2022, pick a date, I don't care what it is, we'll forgive your late charges, or at least the late charges for any component of which of the past due invoice that you pay at this time. Are we willing to take that as a community or not?
I'm not, but if somebody had a hardship or something, I think we would talk about it as a board and we'd consider it. There's not a lot.
If there was community.
There's 3 accounts that have multiple years overdue, and the rest, the 7 or 8 other ones, it's 1 year in arrears for the most part. So
those 1-year folks will just get a reminder. Sorry, Sheila, go ahead.
Okay, no, that's okay. Go ahead, I'm listening.
No, yeah, those 1-year folks are simply just going to get a reminder on their next dues that they missed last year. There's not going to be any sort of additional pressure applied there. This is specifically and only for those 3 houses in question. And so I personally, I side with Larry on this. I think enough has been said. So we can.
By the way, when we send out our notices for dues, every year in the past, we've all sent out a 2-page newsletter, and we send out the meeting minutes, and we should send out the approved budget with the cash accounts that are overdue. Everybody will know that these 3 people are in arrears, and that'll get them to pay. I almost guarantee it. When all of their neighbors know that they are in arrears for all these years of past due accounts, they'll make their payment. That's all that needs to happen.
Marty, could you weigh in on it? Are there any legal obligations or exposure by publishing the names based off your experience in condo associations and stuff?
Sorry, he had an emergency work call, so he's trying to get off that right now.
And you're much cuter than he is.
Thank you. Yeah, I'll try to get him in, but he's on a work call. He assured me it'd be 1 minute. That was about 15 minutes ago. So
I mean,
okay.
Thank you, Katie. And I think with that regard, honestly, Larry, I'm actually more comfortable sending them that sort of final notice than publishing in that way to the community at large. Obviously, this is a community event that everyone is invited to, but that is a part of approving our budget. That information is disclosed here. Actually disseminating that to the community at large, I think is probably maybe a bridge too far, a step more than I'm comfortable with. They've been warned. We will give them final notice, and it will be incumbent on them to decide how they want to move forward, because the lien does not guarantee they will even pay. The lien does, all it does is prevent them from selling the home in a fashion where we will not be made whole at some point on that address. And so that, I think, is ultimately the furthest I'd be willing to go at this time.
Trevor, do you know with the lien, as they accumulate, again, this is just assuming the worst, that they continue to not pay, as they accumulate more that they owe, does the lien balance reflect that, or do we have to file a new lien for the new total amount?
We would indeed have to. I mean, that is, thank you, Mallory. That's a good question. Yeah, we would have to refile. The lien is, again, it is intended as a bit of a strong arm tactic to try and coerce a tenant or an owner into making themselves whole. But yeah, if they continue to rack up unpaid dues, we would conceivably have to refile with the county to recoup the additional monies added onto that property. That's frankly the reason why this has never been a method that has really been pursued until you see these kinds of figures attached to a single property, where now it is actually hurting our community's bottom line now to not have these monies in our sort of reserves to be able to use. Sheila, what do you have to say? Sheila there.
Apparently, if I talk to mute, you can't hear me at all. I'm gonna flash back a few years to a reminder and a conversation we had with John Foote, who was the member of the board, who was our, in neighborhood attorney. At that time, John recommended that we not follow the lien route. Now, I don't recall the reasons for that. Have we consulted with our attorney to determine whether this is an appropriate thing for this organization to do? And I did see all the emails and I saw the letter, and I honestly, I'll say I didn't read it because in the back of my mind, all I remember is a strong recommendation that we not follow the lien route for this type of arrears. So have we talked to our attorney? Because I think we need to do that before we do anything.
No conversations formally have been had as of yet. We do not actually require an attorney to carry out this process. It's a pretty standard form that you file with the county. But I appreciate your position and the basis behind the question. I absolutely think that certainly before we move forward with this process, again, that's the reason that we're discussing this tonight, and that letter was not distributed yet, is that we needed to have this conversation about, A, were we even willing to move forward with this process as a decision that we would make, and then based off of the agreement here, we would discuss that with our legal representative and determine whether or not there is good cause not to. But again, all of the support that I have heard tonight suggests to me that it is worth pursuing those steps in a fashion commensurate with the emotion I'm hearing expressed tonight.
Thank you, Trevor. I just logged back in. Thank you.
Marty, well, actually, you know what? It's okay. I think we've come around on. We had a question for you based on your experience, but I think we came around on that. Okay. So I would like to essentially formally table that conversation. We have agreed, I think, in principle, that we can move forward with that process, but that we need to discuss this with our legal representatives before we can officially make this action. That said, I would like to once more move to approve the 2022 budget. Can I get a second?
I second it.
Fantastic. Again, thank you, Larry, and thank you, Greg, for your efforts in compiling that and the CapEx form. That was really wonderful. At this time, we'll be moving on to committee reports. So first, I would love to hand things over to Sheila Tortorici of the Beach Committee. Sheila, what would you like to share with the group?
I will keep my update very brief in light of the hour. So just a quick update on the Beach Committee. We did not move forward significantly last year on projects, mostly because we still had a large amount of COVID sensitivity in the neighborhood. We are planning on doing the rebuild of the finger dock this year. We did pre-buy the floats, which is actually the most expensive component of that dock. We are looking to use reclaimed wood for the build rather than buying new. We'll have to buy incidentals, screws, what have you. We will plan on having the beach cleanup day. Right now we are, and let me take a quick look at the calendar to make sure I land on a Saturday. We are proposing the 14th of May for beach cleanup with a rain date on the 15th. I'd rather hopefully not go to the following weekend.
Oh, I
But
thought it was the following weekend.
no, not right now. Right now it's the 14th. The following weekend becomes our emergency date and still gets it done before we get into the holiday weekend. Do you want me to move it, Colleen? Sorry, since you said that.
That's right, because whatever gets done, I just didn't know how the weather tends to be usually. I thought it was a little more secure by, the third week. Is Mother's Day that weekend of the 14th?
No, it's the
Weekend before, yeah.
Oh, okay. Okay.
No. So we'll leave it at the 14th for now.
Yeah.
Usually it ends up going for multiple days anyway.
Yeah.
But that's right now the date we're proposing. So I'll get some signage up probably around the beginning of May. So early next week, I'll probably put some signs around so people are prepped for it this year. If there's any major concern on that date of the 14th, or people who would like to contribute will not be available and you wish me to change it, I can, but then I don't have a backup weekend before Memorial Day. So that was kind of the reason we fell back to the 14th. So, but I'm flexible on this. So if there's any objection and strong push for me to move it to the 21st, I can certainly plan on doing that.
No, that's fine.
Okay. And that's kind of where we are for the beach committee report. So Finger Dock will be posting some stuff as we're getting ready to do that build. We've got a few volunteers in the neighborhood to come work. There's only so many people that can do that at a time. So that will probably not occur over that same weekend because it means the carpenter himself will probably be in the driveway of our house. So so likely we'll try and work that around on some other days, try and get that together. We will plan on launching the floats that weekend, however. So that does take some manpower. So appreciate it if people who are able to assist in that are able to show up at the beach on the 14th. We'll probably start around 10 a.m. I'll likely be down there around 9 to sort of get my head around things, but that's currently the plan. And that's all I have, Trevor.
Great. Thank you so much, Sheila. And just in the run up to that, as you're getting ready to post, if you want to send anything and everything my way, I'll make sure it gets sent out via email, requests for specific tools, etc. All of that. Just send it my way.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Oh, and one other thing, anyone who's interested in participating in or on the beach committee, more formally, being more than happy. Colleen has year after year always been there. So, but if anyone is interested in participating, just please reach out to me and maybe we'll actually have a beach committee meeting down at the beach, perhaps. So that's it.
All right. Thank you, Sheila. Colleen, do you have anything you'd like to report from the gardening committee?
No, I just was going to say that really, I kind of do that with the beach committee, I guess, with Sheila in some ways. So she and I can go assess things or do it together or whatever. So just, I'm looking at, I had some of that from that tree that came down, sliced some wood logs, some wood cookies, so to speak. And I want to stain them first. So we probably need to get some stain just to preserve them this time so they don't rot so much, and then create that step into that garden area on the way down to the beach. So kind of freshen that up a little bit.
Yeah, great. I think that sounds great. Yeah, wonderful.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Thank you. Then I will take it for sort of the community events side. We did have a semi-formal, if you will, July 4th barbecue last year, where it was potluck style of having everyone bring their own food. The club provided beverages, provided cookies, and Larry really led the charge on a full day of events, which again, I cannot stress enough how grateful I am for the effort he put forward in the run-up and the performance on that day. So that was magnificent. That's something that I think that we will absolutely look to continue this year in terms of building out a more robust calendar for our celebration of July 4th as a community. But I do believe that this year we will be able to return to our full regular barbecue thrown by the club with our community members providing dessert or side dish. That should be viable given where things seem to be trending. Obviously cases are rising again, but the bad numbers ultimately seem to be depressed. So the fingers crossed here is that continues and that things level out in a way that folks are comfortable coming together in large fashion the way we have in years past. The one question I would have regarding that barbecue this year is that the 4th of July falls on a Monday, which is a bit of an odd date, and given work schedules and things may not be the most ideal. So I was thinking that perhaps we should hold it on Sunday the 3rd this year, as opposed to on the day itself, which would then free folks to enjoy their 4th of July in their own ways, on their own schedules, and in the comfort of maybe their homes or with their family and friends, but still provide a community event on that weekend that will allow everyone to come together. I would just wonder if there's any feedback to that suggestion, or if folks would prefer we hold it on the 4th.
Third is a good idea.
So, all right. Yes, I'll take it. So I will contingently plan on holding the barbecue on the 3rd, which would be a Sunday, and that will also then, I suppose, allow us flexibility if the weather truly was miserable. It does also buy us a rain date if needed. So
That
yes.
sounds good.
I
Yes,
was just
Mallory.
going to say the only hesitation I would have with that is then it's the middle of a 3-day weekend, since so many people do have off on the 4th. So you might miss people who are traveling for part of the weekend then.
I agree.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's definitely a valid concern. I don't know. I mean, what do you think about that? I think, to me,
I think Monday the 4th is fine.
we should just hold the 4th.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah. Okay. I've been overruled. And sorry for the lone voice who agreed with me. I thought we really had something there.
No. I follow your thoughts. I concur, but I guess I would probably lean towards that Monday.
Yeah, that's fine. I mean, that's when we've traditionally held it. This was purely the musings of an idle mind. So that is all we have as far as that's concerned. But I do also want to highlight the egg hunt that we already held that Mallory led. I'm also looking to try and build out our repertoire of Halloween events potentially. So we're hoping to really start building up some additional activities. Potentially things like we've done in the past, such as our progressive potluck, or progressive what are they called? Progressive potluck. We'll call it that. And Colleen and I have discussed a couple fun ideas that could also be exciting, such as, a community murder mystery, things like that. Just ways to get folks out and about and interacting with their neighbors in ways that are both good for kids and also, some stuff that would just be fun for the adults to take part into. Beyond that, the main bulk of my focus in the past year has been spent of all things on our website, just in terms of getting our communications streamlined such that our email communications are better in line with the community, as well as our, let me get rid of this, as well as the website being updated such that, I'll show you here when you first visit our website right now, it pops up and presents right off the bat that we have our meeting this evening. You click on events and it takes you directly to our events page where you'll find our community calendar, the egg hunt's on there. We've got our meeting here. I know we just talked about it, but surprise, the beach cleanup is already listed. July 4th is already on here, I think. So just trying to present a better calendar, an interface for our community to be able to go to one location and have all of the information about what's going on in the community, just contained in one spot. And similarly, it does now link directly to our Two Lake Club Facebook group, as well as to our YouTube page where our meetings will be held. So just trying to build out some of those, and I hate to use this word, but synergies to allow our members of our community as many opportunities to get the information about what's going on in our community as we are able to do. So that will be the conclusion of my report, at which point I sort of spoiled it with my share screen there. But the next thing that we will be moving on to is unfinished and new business. So unfinished and new business. At this point, I think we have covered the liens satisfactorily, but Greg brought up earlier the question of the committees that we have formed that are currently unpopulated. So that includes the Safety and Sustainability Committee, the 5-year Plan Committee, and the Capital Improvements Committee. The reason that those have stagnated is essentially when they were formed at that time at last year's meeting, there were no volunteers to take leadership over them. And, again, as Larry noted, this is a volunteer board, volunteer officers, and all of our members of our community who interact also are volunteering their time. They were just simply projects that no one was ready to tackle. I think for the sake of sanity, I would personally move as the president to collapse the 5-year plan and the capital improvements together, because those two committees are essentially, the original plan was that one would be the envisioning arm of that function, and the other would be the labor arm, essentially the volunteers who would actually come out and put the work in where it was needed. I think that those frankly can be collapsed and consolidated together.
I agree.
To create the 5-year plan committee, which will then envision those capital works projects and create sort of that moving forward plan for the community. Greg, is there anything specific you want to speak to on that, or perhaps would you be interested in chairing that committee?
Yeah, I'll be happy to chair that. And I think your point is absolutely valid, because I was kind of struggling with the two different things, how they tied together. So your comments are perfect. And yet I'd be happy to take that on.
Wonderful. And I will certainly be happy to assist on that in whatever way I can. And I think that's really that's the start. That's where that needed to begin. And you've certainly already done.
Need to start.
Yeah, you've already done a great deal of work just in laying out that budget for us and that envisioning of what it could look like. That's the beginning. And certainly at our work meeting, we already discussed some of the capital projects that we're interested in potentially pursuing, such as clearing more space up at the top of the beach area, up at the parking area, such that we could put in community garden space, things like that. So with Greg taking the lead there, I will be happy to assist him in that. And we can start really trying to push forward some of those projects and think of new things that we can do that will make our community even better and even more exciting for all of our members. Is there anything more you'd like to add on that at this time, Greg?
Nope, that sounds great.
Greg, or whoever with the capital thing, just real quick. I know one of the things we've talked about was trying to get like a shed down there for some of the tools and things like that, a better one than what currently that low one is, something maybe that's tall or whatever. And then Sheila has mentioned that they were talking about building one from some reclaimed wood. So I don't know where that stands, but anyways, that's one of those kind of capital projects that we're
Yep.
looking at to kind of house some of the tools and any other kind of equipment, whether it might be some lighting or some solar lighting or some floodlights or something that we might want or need for down there. Something to keep in mind with the capital projects, whether it's like ice skating or generator or whatever, just throwing things out there.
Yeah.
So
Just a quick, and Trevor or Larry, does the club own anything like tools or a generator? I mean, besides the stuff that's installed on the beach. I mean, if we have a shed, I mean, do we have rakes, shovels? I mean, or does people just bring their own stuff? I'm just kind of curious.
It's really
There-
always just folks bringing their own stuff.
there is like
Okay.
one or two.
Yeah, there's a
things
couple of
down- a couple
things
of
down
things
there,
down
yeah.
there that have
Right.
been kind of donated. And we don't want a lot of stuff because it gets lost or walks away or
Right,
whatever.
yeah, I
but-
understand.
We do own, Greg, we do own, I call it the V of death, actually. So we do
Oh,
own the
yeah.
V of death, which is the weed cutter. So we do own
Yeah.
those. It's currently at my house because we didn't want to
Okay.
leave it unprotected by the
Yep.
lake with children down there, because it is a super sharp razor edged V. So we do have a couple of things like that with a larger space, we would be able to effectively put those away. It does not fit in the existing storage unit we have down there. So
Yeah,
there's,
okay, that makes sense.
But as far as security, if we were to build or somehow outfit a larger structure, that's nothing a padlock can't take care of. So.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So then in terms of the secondary committee that is currently unchaired would be safety and sustainability. The reason that I created this committee is simply just because as we do have a community that likes to be out walking our roadways, and we have an increasing number of children to go along with all the various pets that so many of us have. One thing that strikes me is that every single day we have just an abundance of delivery trucks, which obviously in the past year or two has been a constant for good reason. But moreover, every single day we have at least 3 different oil companies barreling into our neighborhood. Every single day we have at least 2 carting companies barreling through our neighborhood because they only stop at one house that's somewhere out on the end of Twin Lakes, and they come flying around corners because that's the only stop they've got. I fully understand the rationale of the driver who just wants to get in and out as fast as possible, but we do have our share of blind corners. We do have our share of blind spots, and that presents a real risk to the folks who love to be out on our roadways. So the reason I saw those going hand in hand is that cutting down on the number of those oil deliveries, trash deliveries, would help reduce our carbon footprint from a sustainability standpoint, and then specifically also to increase the safety in our neighborhood of those folks who like to be out on the roadways every day. Now, that will require a good deal of investigation and talking to the different companies and talking to different residents who utilize different companies. It would include finding price stabilization, likely with 1 or 2 carting companies, 1 or 2 oil companies at a rate that would be beneficial for the, this is a big undertaking. And that I think is part of the reason that it did not have an immediate taker for last year. And part of the reason that I do think that it perhaps should be folded for now under the auspices of my office as just something of a pet project that I will undertake myself. Because it is a larger bear than I think any little, not little, but any one group will be able to sort of come to an understanding with. And I would personally like to just do my homework on the different rates that our members of our community are getting to see if there is a solution that could be viable before proposing that and trying to implement that in a way in the community. At which point, if that were viable, then I would, need assistance in terms of outreach and communicating to our residents the possibility of cutting down on the excess deliveries, if you will, and sort of streamlining that process. Now, the other end of that story is that if there's only 1 or 2 trucks, now we might have an oil truck circling through the neighborhood for the entire day. So, it comes with pros and cons. So that was,
Correct.
yeah, go
Trev,
for it, Mike.
I think it's a worthy cause, that it's a lot of work there. And also, we don't know how the community would even feel about it. And people are, I
Correct.
would assume people would have a very different viewpoints.
Yeah.
So I like the idea of folding it under, just almost disband. I don't know if we should disband that committee. It never really got off the ground, but I'd be happy to work with the president on his pet project to figure out the best path forward. And maybe it's, starting off with a survey of the community to gauge interest and get an idea of how many people would be interested in participating and things like that. But we can talk about that offline, but I'd be happy to take that one with you.
All right. Thank you, Mike. I really appreciate
Hey,
it.
Trevor, I'd be happy to talk to you too, because I've been here for a while. I echo a lot of your concerns. This is a very complicated situation. And
Absolutely.
if you have concerns about the trash things, we used to have like 8 trash companies coming through here. We had the same company coming through 3 days a week, right? Because they merged with other people and stuff like that. So the trash is much better, but this is a very complicated thing, but I'd be happy to talk to you about some ideas that I have. It clearly is, it was really bad at one time. It's better. If you have some concerns about it now, let's see what we can try and do, but this is not an easy fix.
No, certainly not. But I appreciate your willingness to join in the logistics and sort of brainstorming on what we might be able to do. And especially for me, the end all be all too is if we can make this a more affordable practice for the community at large. That's, I think, the biggest win. But it's going to require some legwork. So I appreciate both Mike and Greg your willingness to tackle this with me. In other unfinished business, Sheila, there was just one more thing that I wanted to ask you, which is, would it be of any benefit where the Portasan is charging us monthly, where we end up getting it? They do end up charging us. I believe last year they charged us for May, or at least a portion of May, for the delivery. Would it be of benefit, do you think, to the beach cleanup to have it down there for the folks that are helping clean up? Would that be something you'd be interested in?
Yeah, it's not a bad idea. I think last year we brought it down the week before Memorial Day. Colleen, you contacted them, right?
I
Can't
did.
remember who called. Oh, you did. Yeah,
Yeah.
so I think if we could have it for the 14th, that would be beneficial, especially if they're charging us part of the month anyway, or the month
Yep.
anyway.
Then I will endeavor to make that the case. And that should wrap up. That is the end of my unfinished business. Does anybody in attendance this evening have anything new that they would like to present to the board at this time? Well, I will take that silence and I will run with it. I appreciate everyone's stamina this evening. I appreciate everyone's input this evening. It has been, as always, a pleasure to get to see friendly faces and discuss the things that are important to us in this community. At this time, I would like to make a motion to formally adjourn the meeting and send everyone home. Well, more home, I guess, to bed.
This is Larry. I'll second that.
Do we have to motion for adjournment? I can't remember.
That was what I formally make a motion to adjourn the meeting.
Moved. Yes.
All right. Thank you, everyone. This recording will be up on YouTube by tomorrow morning. It takes for a really long time for some reason, but I hope everyone has a wonderful evening. And I appreciate all of your time, thought, and effort this evening. Everyone take care.
Oh, by the way,
Thank you.
Trevor, just wanted to
Yes.
say thank you so much for your work on that website. It's really fantastic, and with the calendar there.
Oh yeah, my
thank you.
pleasure.
Thank
And
you.
then, there we go. This I had a last slide.
I am glad that you are computer savvy and have been working on that. So thank you kindly.
Yeah, my
Really,
pleasure.
really.
Yeah, it works on
Nice.
your phone. That's the best
Yeah,
part.
nice to
Works
go
on
to
iPad. No, it's my pleasure. And thank you everyone again for your time tonight, and thank you for your thoughts and your effort. It's really always a nice reminder of just how great this community is when we get together like this.
Yeah.
So have a great evening all. I am going to
Good
formally
meeting, everything,
close.
Trev.
the-
Thank
Thank
you.
you guys.
Okay, good
Have a
night,
great
all.
night.
Bye.
Right.